Iofanis versus Siggy matchup.
After I finish getting the breakdown for top 8, I will be a little bit more helpful.
No worries. So far, both sides have moved. We didn't see a classic Siggy double move, so that's already a good start. Good sportsmanship in the chat. So Baba Yaga opening for Keelan guy. And
All right, I can watch now.
yeah, the Baba Yaga got sabotaged by the Legate, so Legate and Recruit opening for Mr. Awesome Possum.
And we see a unique coming out with this Ratatosker. Ooh, it's like a Quetzalcoatl unique. When an opponent draws a card or resupplies, but it makes 2 in this expedition. That's a very powerful unique.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Dexter played against this or one very similar to it last night and was sending me complaints via DM about how low cost of a Quetz it is.
Yeah, that's a very powerful effect. But regardless, we are still playing this match. It's not over. It is only the second turn of the day. So another Legat coming out on that side. Interesting. Okay, so they're able to both advance on the companion expedition, but you know that Sigismar token putting in work on the hero expedition, as we all know. For anyone wondering what the top 8 heroes are, there are 3 Traced, 3 Aphanis, and 2 Sigismar. So Tasia did not convert, and neither did any other decks. No shade to you, Cole. That it was it was the 4th most represented deck.
Well, no, Frenico is Tasia and is in the top 8, right?
Did I get something wrong with my results then?
I think so, because I think Frenico was 3rd based on tiebreakers, 3rd or 4th.
I still have Frenico is playing Trace this tournament. Unless I somehow did something wrong. Let's see, what table were they? Table 1. I think I did something wrong. Let's see.
Yeah, you didn't miss too much, Doombringer. We are in the top 8 now. We're just getting it situated. This is Keelan Guy versus Mr. Awesome Possum. So 1st seed versus 8th seed, essentially. Seeing this unique...
Yeah, I put in results wrong.
Yeah, this unique rat. It didn't really do too much turn 1. I don't think it's really going to do too much at all. Maybe he swapped during the tournament. What?
No, he didn't. I just double checked. I put in the players wrong at one of the tables. I accidentally switched who was Traced and who was Tasia, and that data was incorrect.
There we go. So see, Tasia did make it. I don't know if I've ever seen Frenico play anything other than Tasia. Also has those very, very good uniques, so I'm sure that he'll stay around that for a while. So we actually see Keelan Guy going up here, but is stuck on a double single sub-region in both expeditions. We don't have any... Oh, there's a sabotage though, which would be good. We don't have any landmarks from Siggy yet. I don't know if Awesome Possum plays any.
I think at this point it's probably a little too slow for them because they've already given up the expedition advantage. So if the Aphanis can advance, just trade expeditions twice for the next couple turns and then get a small step giant leap, they will have a win off of that. But I'm curious to see if they're going to concede a double advance or if they'll have a spell here to at least tie. Oh, a beauty sleep. That is actually a really powerful one here. They're going to be able to advance once and stop an expedition from moving forward.
Yep. This, I mean, it got the step. They were able to advance because of just one single point in the water subregion. In the
Yeah.
chat, Keelan says does not have small step yet. But this is kind of a repeat of the last game that Keelan played. Is just turning on the friggin' gas and going fast. And I don't see a way out of this for Siggy, because even if Siggy double moves right here, the chances there is a small step either right now or next turn are probably pretty high.
Very minimal, but never zero. Never zero.
Never zero. I mean, you could draw a Hydra and everything you need day 4, and then just continue to draw nothing for the next 3 days. So
There's a small step, so
it gets resupplied. That also
that is the
happened in the
worst place
last
for it
game.
to be, though. That's the scariest place for it to be, because especially because Keelan's not going to be the first turn this next turn. So there's the opportunity for the Sigmar to sabotage it with an Ortis Spy. So we'll see how it ends up going, but like they're in a very tricky situation because they have to still stop an expedition from moving this turn as well.
Yeah, so right now the Siggy is undoubtedly going to move on the companion side. And that is
They
the
have
only
to
spy
get.
we've seen.
Oh, that charge is enough to stop it. So they have to get another spy here to answer that. Maybe relying on a little bit of Heart of the Cards for the top deck.
Let's find out. I don't think they have it now, because they would have used it at least before the Ozma. I would say even before the Frog.
I don't think that they would have, though, because then they would have given up the one expedition and lost that turn. But we shall see.
But I believe this is gonna allow Keelan to pick back up that.
Oh,
So
with the Spindle Harvest. He didn't
yeah,
put any boosts on the Spindle Harvester, though. He
did
put them all
not.
on the other one.
Yeah. If I have one or more boost, if I leave, you may return a card other than me from your reserve to your hand. It was anchored, so that's probably why there was no boost put on it.
That is true.
I like how Keelan guy's chatting in both chats while just playing to the absolute highest ability.
And we have a small step giant leap win.
No spy. GG's to Keelan. Moves on again. Let's see. I think I should just be able to go to the tournament and then. Why did it not tell me I dropped? Oh, I guess because I dropped out. I didn't lose out, but it's right here.
Yeah.
So we should have Darka or Frenico playing. Let's see. Here's Darka.
It is best of one. The players voted, and best of one won by a 6-2 vote.
6-2.
Yeah.
Nice. Yep. So
Are
Keelan
you watching
advances.
the Darka match now?
Yep.
Trace mirror match. Okay.
Yep. I've got Darka on the board, and then Frenico is open in case.
I'll check out the Yo match as well, because it looks like that match is still going as well.
This one's pretty interesting though. It's traced versus traced. Both have 5 counters. There's a Capellia unique and an Axiom Salvager unique. There's two Havens in the discard for Darka. No Havens in sight for Have Navarro. Armored Jammer though. Yeah, some did get destroyed indeed. There is the third. How do you feel about the Armored Jammer? And I would guess using Frankenstein to just repeatedly trigger that.
I like the one of Armored Jammer if you're going to be playing 2 or more of the Frankensteins. I'm also a big fan of the one of mechanical training in Traced. I think that the 4 landmarks let you do a lot of like very powerful stuff if you have the supporting cards to go with it. And just finding those landmarks can be super impactful early. So I'm a fan of them. The Armored Jammer, if they have a way to like trigger it over and over again here, it's probably best to wait until after we've cleaned up and our cards have gone to the discard, so you're getting maximum value for it. But we just have to see what ends up happening.
I believe your video froze, and I think it's on your end, unless it's not frozen on your side.
Let me look. It is
Um,
showing frozen. That's so weird.
for
Turn off camera.
the Capelia, it is
There we go.
normal Capelia, but then from anywhere you may put a card from your hand in reserve. Ooh, that's how those havens got destroyed. If you do, you may discard target permanent. That is great. That's how those got away. And then this is just a axiom with from anywhere. If you put a card in reserve, you resupply. I really like the one common jammer in Traced. Also plays well late game as a flex option with Dr. Frankenstein. Yeah. Very good in a mirror as well, since it's not a priority to remove.
Yeah, I think Traced is at least they're guaranteed for top 4, because otherwise I think it would still be a roulette deck.
Yeah, that Traced obviously went to a mage of some sort to boost the luck this turn. 1-for-1 it looks like, but Java Navarro with that jammer is 1 expedition ahead.
Yeah, and he did use the Frankenstein to get rid of the Foundry mechanic, because I believe with the stats that were on board, they would have been able to tie the Companion Expedition, but I can't remember correctly. So we will see what ends up happening. A Haven would be quite good here for Javi Navarro's deck, especially because, like you said, there have been 0 played so far from them. So they're bound to hit it, right? Right?
If they play it. I don't
If
believe I watched any of their games, but I mean,
they are 100% playing the Haven. I can almost guarantee that. This isn't the worst consolation prize, though. Answering the Haven from Darka's board, and like we said, that was the 3rd Haven. They have 12 cards left in deck, so the odds of a reshuffle are very low. And right now, they're just going to be putting out very middling stats. So as long as they don't get double advanced on here, and if it's just 1 and they can tie the other expedition, I think they'll be happy with that trade. But both heroes do still have their hero effect still. They can exhaust it to draw a card and put a card into the reserve from their hand, digging for some extra advantage. Not entirely sure what they would be looking for in those actions.
yeah, I don't know. I was gonna say the reserve was really great for Javi Navarro to play the Haven and then play those cards. Like Amelia Earhart is just so good, but still no Haven. And right now, just barely gonna sneak out on the hero side by 1 point, and companion side for
The
Darka.
interesting thing here is, though, is there is still that Keylon burst, so they can potentially get rid of the highest statted character, which would, I believe, want to be that Capelia.
Yeah.
But it all depends on what they have to play with, because there are still quite a few unknown cards in hand from Darka.
I do
I'm
not.
unsure if
Yeah.
Meltdown played today. I can check though.
Yeah, I do not remember seeing Meltdown.
They played. They went 2-2 and then dropped from the tournament.
Does not play the Keylon Burst, but does play Frankenstein. I mean, even with no use of the ability, a 2 cost for 3/3/3 is. Alright, there's the Haven. And 1 mana left for the Amelia. Saving it for a sneaky companion block and move, or what?
That's very interesting. I believe that you're correct on that. Probably wanting to dodge the Keylon burst itself and get a turn out of it, because now they will guarantee be able to play this Amelia Earhart and trade that expedition. They'll give up the hero expedition, but they will advance on. Actually, no, they can't
Yeah,
advance on the companion expedition,
yeah.
but they
No
can on the
nature.
hero. They
Yeah.
can on the hero though. So once again, like we said, a 1-for-1 trade. They have the Haven that has to be answered by this Keylon burst, and they're setting up for their next turn to be able to win on either side.
Yeah, I don't. It's looking sad for Darka. Just no. I mean, all of these in the expedition right now are fleeting. There is a Keylon burst in reserve, but no havens. No havens left possible. It's just the roulette machine is broken. Pelia comes out, easy choice with 1 haven. I mean, the jammer is still in play, but wasn't acted on, probably because Frankenstein costs more from hand. But I mean, with the amount of cards and the 1 mana advantage, still anybody's game.
Absolutely.
And there's another card. Let's see,
Now,
blocking. Yeah.
it would be so interesting to see what. Interesting. I don't know if I would have placed the Keylon Elemental, but I don't know what the cards in
Oh,
the hands were. Oh, no, that makes a lot more sense then. Do they go
yeah.
for the sabotage or do they go for the card draw here? I believe the sabotage is the right play. I'm not sure about that one.
Another
Oh, they
haven.
can go for both. Duh. You can stack your reactions in limbo however you want.
Yeah.
So they just solve both actions. That's a very powerful unique, actually.
Yeah, and it's 3/3 costs. Yeah, that's a very good traced scrambler. And now we know why the jammer was in action to get rid of that burst. Also because they didn't have a Frankenstein in hand anyways. Yeah.
So very interesting to see what you will end up doing here. I believe the best case scenario for Darka is to be able to have just anything that can give 1 stat. Oh, they had to go for the risky play, and they get a Keylon burst out of it. So if they have a 2-cost character, this puts the game in a much stranger position for Javi Navarro. Because if they have a 2-cost character, they can play it on the expedition on the hero side or the companion side, and they have this Keylon burst for the Capelia, which should be enough to stop any movement. Let's see. Right now, the Keylon Elemental would be 2/4/4 with the Haven, and it looks like they did indeed have a Keylon Elemental, able to put an Axiom Salvager into the reserve.
Mm. Still
But
so many
I believe they
possibilities.
put that Keylon Elemental on the wrong expedition. They needed to put that on the hero expedition here. Where they're just going to potentially
Gamble.
find another character. They are gambling indeed. If they put the Keylon Elemental on the hero expedition, the other Keylon Elemental gets played, they send it to reserve, and they're still tied. This is a very interesting gamble.
There's another gamble here with the resupply from Lyra Chronicler.
And they have to use it because there's no reason to not use it, right?
Yeah, the question is what is Javi thinking about? Because there's literally, there we go. Yeah, I was gonna say there's literally
If they
nothing
see
he
a
can do.
Frankenstein rare or another Keylon Elemental, yep, that is actually going to be enough to do it. And they do get to take that expedition win. So it looks like we will be going to another day.
Interesting, interesting. What good does this Coupier? I mean, yeah, it's still from anywhere does the draw card or resupply, and it costs less from reserve. So
Hmm.
get rid of the elemental, right? You have no havens or
If
anything.
you get, here's the thing though, if you get rid of the I think the elemental, yeah, is the right call. It entirely depends on what card's in the hand, though, because 3 and 3 is a lot of mana. And depending on what they currently have in hand, if it's another 2 or a 3 cost, they might be trying to maximize the amount of cards they can play on the upcoming turn. And if they do that, because the croupier gets to draw another card, it puts it in a weird spot.
You know what the hard thing is here though?
Hmm.
Is first player is going to go to Darka, right? It has not
Yes, it is.
it has not switched yet. So they they don't do it. I was gonna say you might have to get rid of that Keylon because the scrambler is still sitting right there.
All right. For updates on the other matches, Fernico Rico won their match against Kaifu, so we have a Trace or a Tasia moving forward. And in Tacky Fire versus Yo 2137's match, Tacky Fire won, so Tacky Fire and Fernico Rico will be moving forward.
What was the other hero? Tasia and
It was Tasia versus Sigismar, then Aphanis versus Aphanis.
okay, so Tasia and Aphanis are moving on.
Yes.
All right. I also think your cam froze again.
Dang, why does it keep doing this?
If you have hardware acceleration on your video, it'll do weird things when you're like switching windows and all sorts.
My acceleration is always on, bro. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. And yet you don't play Traced, but something we didn't think of is the Tinkerbell came out and it targeted the Axiom Scrambler. So that Scrambler is gone and the Keylon Burst stays safe. Yeah, I realized there was an ad playing when Simon said that, so I typed it in the chat. For those who are not subscribed, you were probably hit with an ad.
And having the double Haven here, as long as they can advance on just one single expedition, just one, and push it to a tiebreaker game, they are in a very good spot.
They got their own
They get to
Keylon here.
send. Okay, sending the croupier. So they have any character in hand, depending on. It's not just any, I suppose.
I mean, we could look at discard and try to guess really quickly.
I'm not gonna do all that, man.
What would be the best? I
The
mean,
best one here would be an Axiom Salvager for sure.
yeah, and it is a possible because there's only
Two in
no
the
nope
discard.
there's three, so no
One, two.
no Axiom Salvager.
Yep. And then Frankenstein, I believe I saw two as well. One Frankenstein, two Frankenstein. There's two Ada Lovelaces. An Ada Lovelace would also not be bad.
Now what Javi Navarro is going to be looking for is something with 4 mountain or 4 water, but I see.
Oh, I believe he has hooked in hand. If it is a hooked, that would be quite unfortunate. They can give their opponent the double expedition advance. That is a hooked.
It's not even the rare. Ouch.
So it looks like Darka will be winning that.
I do not believe there's a way to easily see the top 8 bracket now that we've
I
moved
can
into top
tell
8.
you what it
Yeah,
is. It
that's
will
what I was
be
gonna say.
Keylon Guy versus Tacky Fire and Fernica Rico versus Darka.
Yeah, I believe it was what, 1 Tasia, 2 traced, 2 or 3 traced, 2 Aphanis.
One Tasia, 2 Trace, 2 Sigismar, 2 Sigismar, 2 Trace, 1 Tasia, 3 Aphanis.
Cool. Do we have another game that's still going from
Nope,
this
we
round?
are getting ready to go on to the next match for the top 4.
Hey, yo, and who is still undefeated? Thank you everyone for coming out and watching, and for the new follows. Appreciate you all. I wanted to see Jammer Traced move on. Yeah. It was looking good for a moment. Thank you for the follow, Katarina. And oh, I think that was Oleum. I have too many windows, so I'm watching alerts and chat on my phone, so it's a little smaller. Doombringer again. I'm gonna ban you.
All right.
Follow goal hit. Yeah, Twitch
I
just kept putting those themselves.
believe that Fernica Rico's match is about to get started. It looks like, yes, Fernica Rico and Darka have started their match.
All right, let's watch some good hero games real quick. Except for, can I make my way to the table? I got 2 little blobbies. There we go.
Have now been able to pull it up.
There we go. All right. Stream is in. They're choosing factions.
Hopefully they're choosing the same ones they've played all day.
Hey, Mr. Awesome Possum. Good work out there today. Thanks for the follow. I'm just going to entirely change that alert because it's too annoying. And if people have long names now, it's just broken. Yeah, wonderful work out there today. Good to see ya. All right, while they set this up, I'll leave Simon to talk better than me. I'll be right back.
Am I talking better than you?
Always.
All right. So it looks like what we have right now, Tasia versus Trace. This matchup can be really interesting. The characters on the Tasia side occasionally get very, very massive in their stats, depending on what type of uniques you have, while the Trace side has to rely on some of those removal options to do so. But looks like the Trace player has now been able to make an advancement on turn 1, as well as being able to play that powerful rare Haven Bravos Bastion. We all know that's the card that Trace really likes playing. It's what makes the deck work. They get to play boost, play their little characters from the reserve, and get stronger overall. So right now, there's no good targets for this Tinkerbell, so I believe we'll just be seeing a played character from this Foundry mechanic unless they have another Haven in their hand. There is a potential for that, and then they get to play a 2-cost character at the same time. But no, it looks like that Foundry mechanic is going to be coming out by itself. Um, and the Ogun here is going to be a very strong play as well, letting the Tasia player put strong stats on both sides, 4 more stats on their hero expedition in what matters, and uncontested in the companion expedition. So right now it looks like the Tasia player is going to take a sizable strong lead, um, while this Trace player is still working on getting set up. And at this point, the Trace player is going to need a lot of help getting their scrap counters online, because scrap counters, they haven't gotten to accumulate anything. The Tinkerbell was potentially nice off that Haven Bravos Bastion, but with Tasia, you usually don't put anything into the reserve early on, and you got to be careful about the turns when you do have that sabotage.
Yeah, so Darka is the first player and does have a Tinkerbell sitting right there. I don't know if you care. No, okay, in a normal match, I don't know if you're too worried about what's in the reserve here for Tasia, but against
Thing is,
Frenico,
the thing is, right now they have a very solid setup of being able to play this Hydrocana and the Ogun, just depending on what's going on.
yeah,
Um, they're not going to get the scrap counters online until at the earliest next turn. They're definitely not coming out this turn on turn 3, um, unless they have some crazy chain of events where they hit like triple rare Axiom Salvager into one another. But does not look like that is currently happening.
yeah. So I'm assuming the way this game started was like Dracana one day, Shroom one day, and then Ogun after they were sticking
So
around.
the game started with a Haven, then Dracana was played, then a Foundry Mechanic, Exchange Expeditions. The second option, or the second day, was a Sneezer Stream start, followed with a Foundry Mechanic played, followed by Ogun, and then the Ada Lovelace was played just to be able to get it into the reserve, so they gave up the double advancement. So the Sneezer Shroom is strong. This Hydrocana was strong on the second turn as well. We'll see what ends up actually happening here, because Fernico Rico has a lot of decisions to make on what they would like to put onto the board.
Yeah. The Ogun does become scary with the uniques, especially the ones that Fernico runs. So
If
uh yeah.
if this Dracana gets played and Trace gets to play a Keylon Burst and oh, interesting. I don't quite hate that option. They're playing safe and playing roughly around a Keylon Burst here, which is exactly what I would be expecting if I was the Tasia player. Because now, if the Sneezer Shroom gets hit with that Keylon Burst, they get to replay the Shroom and the Ogun on the same turn, get that strong Shroom for the next day. Whereas if they had played that Dracana and they had nothing else to follow it up with, there was going to be potential for some interaction going on because there is no spindle, the Bastion spindle out currently.
Yeah, it's a really smart read. So we see another Lovelace, and that Salvager's gonna be there, which is good for the Traced. Um yeah, it's anybody's game right now. I actually don't know if Renico plays Cloth Cocoon because his deck is built so specifically around how you're gonna see it play.
A lot
Uh
of them have cut the Cloth Cocoon recently, and instead they're like the aggressive decks are more playing like the mana eruptions,
mhm,
because the extra cost and it doesn't care about what removal it does, is very important.
yeah.
Ooh, so I may have, lied about being able to use this scrap counter this turn, because that was the perfect sequence of events. Getting able to hit that Foundry mechanic and the Capellia too, it looks like we are back into a very interesting game situation. I think the most important thing to read about this game state is that the Tasia player currently has 0 cards in hand, and next turn I'm going to presume they're going to be placing a mana. They'll get the resupply from the aloe vera, but they won't have many cards to work with that can't be hit by this sabotage from the Tinkerbell. So I think we are going to be in a very interesting situation trying to see what will be winning moving forward. And I quite like where this Capelia has been placed, because right now it is completely blocking the aloe vera, whereas on the other side, yes, you may have had more stats and potential to advance, but I believe you'll just be conceding one of the sides of this game. So we'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah. I was gonna say getting rid of the beauty sleep is the obvious choice. In Muna, it's very hard to spend 3 mana on that, especially this early. Um, Cloth Cocoon was mostly used because of Robin. I still use Cloth Cocoon, but my deck is a little different than Frenico's. I do not personally like Mana Reaping because it gives my opponent an advantage, but when you're going as fast as Frenico, it's not as big of a deal. So
I agree. With the slower decks, maybe you can still use the Cloth Cocoon, but in the quicker decks, the Mana Reaping and the Rare Mana Eruption usually end up being smarter options for the most part. Now, I'm curious to see if there will be a Tinkerbell played on this O-Gun here, and the potential to stop a strong board buff. The only downside, it could also get rid of the Mana Reaping to keep the Haven around, which I don't hate as well. Depending on what is still in the hand from
yep, there's the
Darka, I
Ogun.
could see either option being viable.
Yeah, I think probably with 3 mana left, you get rid of the Ogun because it's just so many boosts at this moment. And if you get your Haven hit by that Reaping, at this point you probably have another one in hand.
We say that, but it took quite a while for the Darka last game to find, or was it Javi Navarro to find their, what's it called?
Yeah, they got a Haven a lot later.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's
We'll
just so many one cost things that Traced can play that will be pretty good. So, Mana Reaping on the Haven as we thought. And a Lovelace going in. This is gonna if you may, yeah, draw a card. Gonna draw another card. So no Haven, but no advance
Oh,
either, but a block at least.
this Muna Merchant will be able to keep this Tinkerbell around for the next turn if they choose to. Having target character lose fleeting other than it. Having that Tinkerbell stick around and using it to sabotage the aloe vera would be quite a powerful play.
Yeah, it's especially with Tasia only having 1 card in hand and the Traced having 2 in hand, 2 in reserve. Going
And
to go
because of that mana
first.
reaping, they're going to have a whole lot of mana to work with this turn. They'll have 8 and they'll have 5, 6 cards to see throughout the turn, or 7 if they play the Salvager. So they've got a lot of different options. I'm curious to see if the Tasia will use their mana. I know sometimes the Tasia decks stop at 6 or 7 depending on what's in their hand, just because having the cards to be able to play ends up being a better choice. But
Yep.
we'll end up seeing what they go with.
Either way, if I am the Tasia right now, I am not loving where I'm at.
Yeah, I even though I have a 1 expedition advancement, I am not confident in being able to move forward. So it looks like we see the first of the uniques coming out from Tasia. Resupply effect, which can backfire potentially against Traced, but I don't think that's going to be a bad thing here because it gives the Tasia player more cards, which they desperately need. When a character gains 1 or more boosts, if you have 2 or more boosted characters, you get to give another character with 3 or less hand cost anchored. And I believe with the cards they have, they'll be able to also play this Chiron and the Sneezer Shroom. So they're going to be building up an army of these plants for the next turn, which is going to be very, very hard to deal with from that Traced.
Yep, this is for Nico's classic setup right here. I don't know if you could have hoped for a better resupply on that. It's gonna try to keep the Chiron and the Kitsune around as long as possible, and it's just going to bounce anchors back and forth, back and forth. I've played against it. It's nasty.
So I believe you'll be digging for a Sabotage here. Did not find it, unfortunately. And I am curious to see how this game situation will end up playing out. Because there will be 3 characters that will still be on board starting the next turn. And with the stats that are going to be provided, it's very likely that they can block, if not win, both expeditions.
Yeah, still, once again, even with the salvager not resupplying what you want, there's not any other removal or sabotage in Traced's discard so far, though. So it's out there somewhere.
And we talked about the potential Keylon burst earlier. That's still something that could be played, but right now it does not look like they're going for that option this turn. And here's where we see all of these fun reactions enter Limbo, getting to stack how they go. This Kitsune is going to be able to give so many anchors, and it itself doesn't even have fleeting yet. So they'll be able to play it for the 1 cost immediately on their next turn and start the whole chain over again, and probably looking at a win right here on this follow-up turn. Especially with that
These
pass
ones are
coming in.
definitely scary, that's for sure. Mine are not that scary. Oh my gosh. And this is the perfect
That is
card you could have
devastating.
had in hand.
Yep, absolutely, because now it will be able to anchor the Kitsune, which could not be anchored by its own effects the next turn. This is looking green mean all over again.
Yeah. Since Keelon guy usually has extra insights and is basically like Batman and has a dossier on every player, do you know how Frenico obtained these? And do you know if there's been a cost mentioned? Because there's no way one person pulls these 3, right? Because there's a third one.
Yeah, sometimes it's some hunting, you know.
I believe he bought them. That's the other thing, though, is like that's always going to be a thing. But I can tell you there are players that played in the Invitational that have also spent a lot of money on uniques and did not make the top 8. So even though these uniques are incredible and the deck is built around them, it's still very, very good play from Frenico. And it's just set up perfectly.
Absolutely. Sometimes that's just the luck of the draw in card games. And all of these cards in Traced hand, they have a Sabotage, but it is a turn too late, unfortunately. Being able to answer this Muna Caregiver, but the stats just aren't statting.
Ooh,
And the
there's the
third
third.
unique coming out, seeing all 3 uniques in the top half of your deck surely has to be a sign. Very powerful stuff indeed coming out.
So the only downside to this very moment for Tasia is there are no more cards to play with 4 mana left. But if you've never seen this Yangsu, it is when another
They still have
character.
a card in hand. At least on my board, they have a card in hand.
What? No, they don't.
That is extremely funny. I had to refresh my page because it looked like they still had a card
That's
in
funny.
hand.
Yeah. If you control 2 or more plants other than me, up to 2 characters each gain 1 boost. And that is anchored, 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 all right here. I talked about my player that's beat me the most earlier, and I think it's YOLO as well.
All right, and it looks like Keelan Guy won his match, keeping this undefeated streak alive. So whoever wins this final match between Darka and Fernico Rico will be matching up against Keelan Guy.
Yep, it looks like I believe Darka already called the GGs in the chat. Does not have the mountain to pull it off, it seems. And no permanent. What is the quick action here? Oh. Interesting. Oh, can't block the companion side though. Yeah, too far down. Too far down. The companion side is what wins it. I was distracted by the table chat.
All right, so we have the final stage set up for this event. It is a rematch, actually, of the final match of Swiss as well. Both of these players went undefeated throughout all 7 rounds, or through 6 rounds, with the Keelan Guy taking the win in round 7 over Fernico Rico. So, Fernico Rico could get the rematch that they've been desiring, or they might get beat again. Only time will tell. Once players get set up, we will have the match ready for you all. Who do you think's gonna win, Cole?
I mean, I think the hard thing for Nico is how well the draw treats them, and I think it's a lot easier for a Keelan guy to get so many tools. I think a Faunus in general is scarier, and when a really good player that's worked on the deck, like with a team, is playing a Faunus, there's just so many options. So, as much as I would love to root for Tasia, if I had to pick, it would be a Faunus. It would be Keelan guy. Which we can actually do a fun little prediction. You guys might lose Simon's face for a second, but I'll put it up. Who will win? And it's Keelan guy or Nico. Let's see. Not loaded up yet. You will have 5 minutes to vote. And what is on the line is fancy internet points. All right. This is already the final match, huh?
Yes, it is very nice. We have finished the top 8 and top 4 very quickly due to best of 1. We have one more match to go.
I know some
Keelan
people
Guy versus Fernico Rico.
still don't have it on my end yet, but it'll pop up. I know some people get upset about losing in a best of 1, or they, consider a best of 3 a much better thing for them, but I don't know. I think it's still the same style of game. Your odds are just more spread out. I don't know. I'm sure some mathematician is like best of 3 is better overall, but if you're a great player, it's the same either way. No, it wasn't a close vote. No.
It was 5 votes to 2 with 1 vote that said they could go either way. So I said it was 6 to 2. I do not know who voted what. That's their prerogative if they want to keep it private or public. But I decided to go with the majority rules, especially since a lot of our players currently playing are in Europe. It is currently 9:30 over there. Best of 3 would have been a lot longer. And that's actually a really good point, Braypost. Best of 3 and Altered, I think would be very fun if they did what was called 2-deck format, where you bring 2 decks and you have to win a game with both. So after you win a game with one deck, you have to switch to the other one. I think that would be a very fun way to play the game. I know other games that have done that for their best of threes. It just helps encourage some variety. Although it would mean that people would have to have 2 competitive decks if they played. But you never know. All right. We have our final match set up. Looks like we are getting into the lobby now.
What the heck? I have premium. Why are you showing me this?
It happened to me last time too. And I have premium too, which
Yeah,
is really funny.
we have to have premium to set up tournaments.
Yeah. Oh, do you? I didn't know that.
Yep. You cannot create tournaments without it. That's the other thing is, as much as we all love doing this, it is a huge chunk of our day, especially if you already work Monday through Friday. For players, if they lose out or in between matches, they can kind of just do whatever they want. But when you're setting up the tournament, you're kind of on the whole time. So a 2-day event with no pay or nothing else would be very hard to justify.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see this rematch, and it looks like Nico Rico will be going first in this matchup.
Which I actually don't like to do on Tasia.
I think most heroes prefer to go second. Just getting that extra turn where you get to see what your opponent has done and potentially scout out the plays ends up being, I believe, the preferred choice. Very interesting. Taking a little bit on deciding the mana from the Keylon guy makes you wonder if one of the cards in hand was a small step giant leap. Very powerful play coming out from the Tasia turn 1 though. They have the rare Spindle Harvesters, getting the opportunity to potentially have an O-Gun and get the extra boosts with a resupply, or it looks like the Nurture is coming down, giving themselves 3/2/2 stat line with that resupply as well. Let's see what Keylon Guy counters with. A Helping Hand, which will indeed put the stats on this into 4 overall due to a boost from the character, Aphanis, as well as the spell itself, letting them advance moving forward. And that Helping Hand means that this, what's it called? The Katagiran Mage Dancer will have the opportunity to stick around yet another turn overall, which is a very powerful card in Aphanis if you were not aware.
Yeah, this is a really good setup for both sides. Even though Keylon Guy was able to get the advance, this is a really good setup for Nico as well. You have the Spindle, it got the boosts it needs, it resupplies that Chronicler, or is that? No, it's Thespian, sorry. The Nurture is in reserve, so it's only going to cost 1 mana, and not gonna play it yet though. Takes the Aloe Vera. Ooh. So this is now very good for, well, the Mage Dance. Mage Dancer's gonna go
Losing
away
the
though.
Mage Dancer is sad, but you get to see everything that happens. They now have traded the reserves, 2 cards in reserve apiece versus 2 cards in the hand, and there is a 2 expedition lead from the Keylon guy. If they can just somehow make it throughout this next couple turns of the game and not give up too much of an advantage, they have a very strong case to be said for winning this match.
Yep. And the Tasia had to get rid of 2 cards to pare down the reserve. Not to mention, Aphanis can easily pick back up both of these spells in reserve. And this is exactly what I was saying about Aphanis, is there's just so many tools, so many options. It's really hard to compete against.
Now, if you're the Aphanis player here, the best possible card I would say to draw is more than likely a Baba Yaga rare. Oh my gosh. And I called it. So what's going to happen now is if this Aloe Vera gets played and anchored on the companion expedition, the Baba Yaga is still going to advance forward. And if the Helping Hand gets played as well, which there's no reason not to. You're going to be getting rid of the card anyways, unless there's like a Sneaser Shroom in hand. They get to advance and trade the expeditions, continuing to further this game plan that they're looking for. It does not get rid of the aloe vera itself as well. So if there is a off you go in hand, I can also see the argument made. But it looks like the Sneaser Shroom is what's going to come out instead, taking the safer option, getting a character that will stick around for the next turn and be able to stack those boosts that Afanis likes to provide. Still a close game, only a 1 expedition lead for the Keylon guy. Plenty of room for Tasia to come back into this match.
And the off you go gets removed instead of the Baba Yaga. So that
And I think
is
at this point,
interesting.
the 4 mana off you go is best if it is a late game situation that you're trying to desperately win off of, because 4 mana when you only have 6 is quite a tough ask.
Yeah.
Ooh, a magical training coming out, another powerful card, being able to stack some boosts, see additional cards. One of the staple cards in Afanis for sure.
The way that I see off you go in Afanis's reserve, though, is one, you're just waiting to pick back up and not play for 4. But
Potential, yeah. I think that's definitely more of a Akasha style play, but it does happen with, like you said, the Flamel or the uniques that have ways to add spells back from your reserve to your hand. It is not entirely unheard of. Now, this is a very tricky situation to be in as the Keylon guy. They have the Mana Reaping still in the reserve, which can be played, which means that there's a potential that they don't advance here and in fact give up a double advancement. I don't know what all is in their hand, so I can't say for sure. Doing that magical training, putting an extra boost more than likely on the Baba Yaga. Yep, that makes sense. Although I will say, if they do use the Mana Reaping here and don't develop a board state, they will have no characters going into the board on the next turn, which could be a bad situation. So, they opt for the Nurture instead, putting a boost on the Spindle Harvesters and the Muna Caregiver. And yet another magical training coming out from the Keylon guy. I think that's a smart play, though. There was a potential that they had a Beauty Sleep in hand and could have Beauty Slept either the Aloe Vera or the Muna Caregiver and been able to advance the expedition.
yeah, what do we see? What is it? Yep, there's some beauty sleep on the shroom. Oh, okay.
Beauty Sleep on the own Spindle Harvesters, still moving 1 expedition forward and another, securing that character sticking around for the next turn, as well as the resupply. I don't hate this. You're still in a position where the Afanis player was almost in top deck mode, so you know they haven't really had the opportunity to keep that small step giant leap in hand as easily as other turns or games may be, and they're still 2 turns away from being able, or 2 advancements away from being able to small step for the win. So advancing a board state here while also securing a resupply probably is going to be that best option from the Tasia.
It is also a classic play that we've seen Nico do a couple times, and there's one of the uniques. I don't think you want this
It is not a great one right here.
to
There is only one
resupply
plant in
either.
play. The
Yeah.
resupply is not terrible hitting the Dracana. They'll be able to play the Dracana and use the Muna Caregiver's effect to anchor the Spindle Harvesters should they choose to. So it's not the end of the world, but you almost would have liked to make sure that that Yongsu had an additional plant out for its effect so that it was able to give 2 more stats when played. Especially since it's not going to be the character to keep this boost given from Tasia on the next turn, because I assume you will not be anchoring it with any effect.
Uh, you could, because it has the when another character joins your expeditions, if you control 2 or more. But I just the fact that it
Oh,
came
you're right.
into the reserve is
Mhm.
unfortunate because the other uniques are not out already, and you basically lose 1 cycle with it. So it'll be interesting to see how Nico deals with that.
And you're absolutely right. I read that card's effect wrong for some reason. I thought the resupply was the when played from reserve, and or the resupply was when the character joined, and the when played from reserve was the boost giving. It's the opposite way around. I like the placement of the Sneezer Shroom here, specifically because it forces the Dracana into an expedition where its stats will not be best appreciated. And with all of these cards still in hand, there is a lot of potential for Afanis and Senka to still do what they want to do and trade one expedition for one expedition.
Yep. The fact when going into this round, seeing how many cards Keelan guy had is what scared me the most. And now basically has a free turn to do whatever, because all that Nico's going to be able to do is most likely use the support ability on the caregiver.
So I guess it comes down to, do they have another beauty sleep in hand? If there is another beauty sleep in hand, this has potential to be absolutely disastrous for Keelan Guy. If the Sneezer Shroom has been committed to the board while there is a beauty sleep, they are in a world of pain. And it looks like the Flamel choice is being played instead. I think that this is the safer option. Because if they have to beauty sleep the Flamel, you have two characters in play for the following turn to stick around. Now the real question is the Muna Caregiver going to anchor the Yongsu, or is it going to be anchoring the Spindle Harvesters?
Yeah. If I'm just looking at how Nico usually plays, I would say the Spindle. But the unique having an ability that is just whenever a character joins is
It's
good.
an immediate power effect from this Yongsu if you keep it around, and the Yongsu currently has more stats. So, do you value the stats next turn or the extra card in your reserve?
Yep. The other thing to consider is if the Spindle doesn't get anchored, it does leave, so you have to replace that second plant before Yongsu is truly useful.
Absolutely. And it looks like they're giving it to the Yongsu and ending their turn. So no beauty sleep coming out. I expect us to see a magical training or this helping hand onto the Flamel. Or actually, it looks like instead it's going...
Yeah, because Afanis
Yep,
boosts Afanis on
the
the
Afanas
Flamel.
boost. Yep, I forget that you can change them around. That is a very powerful play there, because now the Spindle Harvester is gone, and the Sneezer Shroom is going to be blocking the Dracana while also advancing itself on grass. And because they're moving forward on grass, Flamel is another powerful option as well. 3 mana for 4/3/3 in stats is powerful if you choose not to use the support ability. I can absolutely see that being a play that the Keelan guy decides to go for. But as always, there is still this mana reaping in the reserve. There's a potential that it still can mess up plays, and off you go coming out onto the
Ouch,
Yongsu.
that hurts. There's no setup for any of that now. Just a regular Shroom comes out. Looks like we have some Nico fans in the chat. Keelan guy only needs one advance, and then it's probably GG's. I gotta believe he has a small step in hand by now with how many cards we've seen go in there.
I wouldn't be too sure of it. There's potential that they have opted for just winning these matches instead outright. I don't recall if there was ever a turn where they had 0 cards in hand. I believe they've always had at least one. So that one card that they've kept could be that small step. But you know, sometimes the Afanis player, they just heart of the cards, draw it when they need it. And Keelan guy thinking hard on this play. Absolutely a play to think through. And a rare Hathor coming out. No stats giving on that expedition, but with Ooh.
Just poking at figuring out what Keelan guy is doing. Played the shroom for just 2, played the caregiver for just 1, leaving the
So
mana
now this is
reaping
a
right
very
there.
interesting situation. If you use this banishing gate, sending the Sneezer Shroom away. Ooh.
Sneaky 1 in the water.
The important thing is there is now, once again, not going to be any characters left in play for the follow-up turn. Unless there is an aloe vera rare in Fernico Rico's hand that they've been waiting to play on the companion expedition. But even then, that puts Keelan Guy. Oh, there's the aloe vera rare, like I expected. Keelan Guy, if they have small step giant leap, they will win. And it
Yep.
looks like through the conversations between the players, Keelan Guy has it, but they will have to play it out still, see how it ends up going. Because of the double advancements happening, it looks a lot closer than it is, but one small step giant leap in hand would mean that the Keelan Guy would win this match and win the first ever A.W.O.L seasonal invitational.
Yeah, that unless there's a server glitch or error and the card disappears.
Don't. Do you joke that happened round 1? There was a player who had the win and it bugged out and neither of them could play. They literally had small step giant leap. So it has happened this tournament. Do not wish that evil on this match.
Oh, and there's one of the really good uniques, but it is too little, too late.
For the small step giant leap. And the Keelan Guy finishes the tournament undefeated overall, 0 losses in Swiss, 0 losses in Top Cut, 10 straight victories to win the first ever A.W.O.L seasonal invitational. Let's see if we can bring him in for an interview. You cool with that, Cole, if I can get him?
Of course, of course.